Bret walked 103 times this year, but not because he was looking for walks. He is not necessarily the world's most patient hitter. As he puts it, if I see a pitch, I just go and hack.
In stark contrast, the '80 Yankees appeared vulnerable. Coming off a subpar fourth-place finish, the Yankees had to replace their catcher and captain Thurman Munson, whose death the previous summer had shocked baseball.
We thought we could come back in '79 like we did in '78, and then when that happened, we couldn't make a comeback like we had planned on doing, but it was devastating.
Coming over in an off-season trade with Toronto, young catcher Rick Cerrone sensed the void would be tough to fill.
I hope people don't think I can step right in and replace people that have been there. I'm not capable of doing that right yet. I'm 25 and I think I'm still improving.
Reggie Jackson was looking to improve on his 29 homers and 89 RBIs in '79, both team highs. And with new manager Dick Howser providing stability after the Billy Martin, Bob Lemon merry-go-round, the Yanks hope to give the O's a run for their money in '80.
Dick, answer me truthfully. Any doubt that you'd win this thing at all, Baltimore chasing you?
Well, you know, this is a good club, and we were in the driver's seat, but there's always doubt. There's been clubs that, you know, if we have trouble getting runs and Detroit's going to battle us, nobody gives us anything. We had to go out and win it ourselves, and it's kind of nice to win it, not to back into it. You don't back in when you win 100 games, but it's still nice to go out and win it yourself.
That's popped up. That might do it. Darrell Porter, the catcher, calling in foul territory, and the ball game is over. The Yankees in the ninth, no runs apiece, hit a man left. Final score: the Royals win the first game of this 1980 American League Championship Series. Royals clinging to a one-run lead. Quisenberry on the mound, 2 men on, 1 out. Pitch to, here it is. Nettles goes down the right for 1. Back to first, double play. The Royals win. The Kansas City Royals on the double play. White to Washington. Over to Willie Aikens. End it. Quisenberry with a save. Leonard with a win. 3-2 the final score. 7th inning. 2 outs. Wilson at second. George Brett on deck. UL Washington at the plate. 3-2 pitch on the way. Bounding ball over the mound. Back of second base. Tough play for Randolph. Safe. UL Washington with a blazing speed paying off. Racing up the first base line and safe. And the Royals have runners at the corners. The tying run potentially over at third base. The lead run potentially at first with George Brett coming to the plate. Outfield deep at every position now with George Brett at the plate. Set by Gossage. A high drive hit deep to right field. It is gone. 3-run home run by George Brett into the third tier of Yankee Stadium. And Brett has taken the Royals and put them in front. Put them in front here in the 7th inning. The Royals now lead it 4-2. And a stunned crowd here at Yankee Stadium in New York as Brett being patted on the back by Gordy McKenzie and the welcoming party at home plate as the Royals lead by a pair of runs. Called strike 3, and Kansas City wins the pennant.
In the AL West, the Royals had started the first half of the year terribly at 9-22. But with fresh optimism when the season restarted, the defending AL champs replaced manager Jim Fry in late August with Dick Howser.
I like the ball club. That's one reason I'm here. Every club has some problem, but I think all you have to do is look to what they did last year. And most of those players are still here, and you can see that's a good ball club.
The thing that Dick Howser brought to our ball club was a no-panic type attitude, a guy who really felt like regardless of what the circumstances were, that we could overcome it. And I think that when you show that kind of confidence, players respond to that.
Sure enough, the Royals got hot, winning 6 of their last 8 to seize first place and set up an AL West divisional playoff with first-half champ Oakland.
The
Oakland A's take the first game of the Western Division Series, winning it by a score of 4-0 as Norris takes care of Dennis Leonard and the Royals.
Game 2 in Kansas City on Wednesday. Tony Armas with a fly ball to right. Misjudged by Clint Hurdle. Drops for a double. A's take a 1-0 lead. Royals tie it in the 5th, but then Armas' 4th hit of the game drives in the winning run in the 8th inning. A bullet through the legs of George Brett. Steve McCaddy goes all the way. A's take a 2-0 lead in the series and wrap it up tonight in Game 3.
40,000 on their feet. 2-2 pitch. The A's win the West.
And now the starting lineup for your Kansas City Royals. Here's the Royals manager, Dick Howser.
Squibb down to first, and it will be Bergman who will end it unassisted. And Morris and Hernandez combine on a beauty. Trammell with a single, a triple, and a home run. Solo homers by Parrish and Herndon. 14 hits in all for the Tigers, and they rout Kansas City as Detroit beats the Royals 8-1 in Game 1. And the pitch on the way is lined to right field, but right to Gibson. And the Tigers go home to Detroit, needing one win for the American League pennant, as the Tigers win it in 11 innings in Kansas City by a score of 5-3. Popped up in foul ground and playable, and the Tigers win the pennant.
The 1985 Angels held first place for most of the season, as many as 7.5 games ahead of the Royals in July.
Backhands to Krebs, and they double him up.
But by late September, the lead had slipped to 1. A 4-game set in KC would settle it.
I feel pretty good. We've got 4 games left. We're even, Steven. We've got 4 games at home.
Howser had confidence. He also had George Brett.
Facing him, and most left-handers didn't like facing him, and I was no different. And I hit a home run to straightaway center field, and all of a sudden it was like, man, we can beat these guys.
And deep to right center field.
Well, George, I can honestly say was the best clutch player that I ever played with, and probably the best clutch hitter that I've ever seen.
During that last week of the season, Brett had 5 homers and 11 RBIs as KC took 3 of 4 and clinched the division.
George Brett, he did it!
In the ALCS, the Royals would face the Blue Jays. Toronto had been the best team in the league all season and rode into the best-of-7 series on an emotional high.
Game 1, just tremendous excitement in the ballpark. First playoff game ever, and the crowd was excited.
Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney threw out the first ball.
I put it together that day pretty good, getting ahead of the hitters. Pretty much just shut them down. It's just a great feeling to win that first one and be on our way to possibly going to the World Series.
In Game 2, Toronto pulled it out on the bottom of the 10th to take a 2-0 lead.
That might do it. The throw from Smith. The Blue Jays win it.
The loss was a record 11th straight in the postseason for the Royals manager Dick Howser. But the skipper's confidence in himself and his ball club never wavered.
He used to have an expression, play the game hard, play the game right. We got the talent here, and as a result, we really didn't panic.
We can get it going. One game can turn this thing around. Tonight could be that game.
And then we get back to Kansas City for Game 3, and I had the best single game I ever had in my life.
NBC Sports presents the 1985 American League Championship Series. Tonight from Royals Stadium, it's the Toronto Blue Jays and the Kansas City Royals. Tonight's pregame show is brought to you by a company called TRW, where tomorrow is taking shape. And by your Blue Cross and Blue Shield plan, who reminds you to carry the caring card. The American League Championship Series has shifted from Ontario, Canada to America's heartland. A red, wet, damp heartland it is. Kansas City, Missouri, and Royal Stadium the scene as the Royals in Game 3 host the Toronto Blue Jays. Good evening, everyone. It has been a great Canadian dream to get to the World Series, and the Blue Jays are only 2 victories from accomplishing that. It's been nightmarish for the Kansas City Royals. As a team, they have lost their last 10 playoff games. The manager, Dick Howser, is 0-11 with the Yankees and the Royals. The weather could be a factor. It has rained hard throughout the week. The last 3 days, 5 inches has fallen in this area. It has sprinkled throughout the day and light showers falling at the moment. But at present, the game will start as expected about 10 minutes from now. The starting pitchers, Bret Saberhagen, the ace of the Kansas City staff, will try to get them on track. He won 20 this year. He'll be opposed by the wily veteran right-hander of the Blue Jays, Doyle Alexander. He won 17 for the 2nd straight year. So the Royals and the Toronto Blue Jays, Kansas City has not played up to its talent on the season, and we'll get that story from Dick Howser in a moment. Catcher Rick Dempsey joining us in showery Kansas City. Toronto so far a solid ball club, has played up to all of its expectations, but the Royals are very disappointed. They have not played well the first 2 games.
No, they haven't. It's like Weaver tells us at spring training on the very first day, you know, don't try to do things that you're not capable of doing. And so far, I think that the Kansas City Royals have rushed quite a bit and have made a lot of senseless mistakes.
The physical errors and the mental mistakes have added up against Kansas City.
Dick, during the course of the season, every team is going to go through defensive slumps, but now is not the time for Kansas City to do it against the Toronto Blue Jays.
Defense is a commodity taken for granted. You don't expect Bret to bobble the easy grounder. You don't expect Jim Sundberg to throw the ball into center field. The extra base and the extra runs follow. Why now in the playoffs?
I know, certainly players of that caliber who have been good defensive players in the past, physical errors are going to happen. The mental errors, you don't know.
Now, playing outside yourself beyond 100% does create mistakes, and the mental errors are inexcusable.
They are. I think if you take in the case of Willie Wilson, where there's a base hit to center field, he's got a chance to force the runner at second base, but he looks the wrong way, throws off the wrong foot to second base. The guy beats it by a half a step. It costs him an out and a run. And then you go to the Steve Balboni play. Everybody thinks it was Balboni's fault, but if you watch the monitor, you can see that there's nobody covering third base when he attempts to throw the ball. George Brett barely beat the runner back.
Haste makes waste. When you play a game of errors, a manager can be 0-11. How many times you heard that one?
Yeah, quite a few this last couple of weeks. But we didn't play a good game the other night. The first game, Steve just completely shut us down, and we had a chance to win it. We didn't play well defensively, and now we're 0-2 in this particular playoff series.
How about the pressure on you as a manager, not winning a playoff game, 0-11?
Dick, no, I don't like it. I don't like it, but it's a little bit frustrating, but it's not as frustrating as the game, like the game we lost the other night. The record's going to take care of itself. What we're trying to do is get to the World Series, and if we play like that, we won't. But if we play like that, you're not going to get to the World Series. It's that simple.
Well, how come you don't play like that when you play the Baltimore Orioles?
Yeah, I know you had. Rick Dempsey asked me earlier this year when we were playing the Orioles. Last year we did pretty good against them, and he said, Dick, Texas beats you guys down there. How come you don't play against Texas like you do against? That's the kind of club we have, Rick. I really don't know what to expect.
Now, you know, I know what will change this whole thing for you around right now. I want you to get up and assume your role as a Rick Dempsey for the Baltimore Orioles. Run up and down the dugout, yell and scream for 9 straight innings until you get so exhausted you can't make it out for the next day.
I would never do that. I'd never hit 219 in my life, Rick. You're capable of doing that any year, and I wouldn't get involved in anything like that.
Okay, what did you tell your team? Down 2 games, and you play Toronto now, the big 3. You can't really afford to lose tonight.
Yeah, I haven't really said anything to the ball club. I give a couple of speeches during the year, but I think that the fact that we've been able to come to get behind in a series or during the season, you get in a situation, it looks like things are going down the tubes for you, and all of a sudden we bounce back and win 13 out of 15 or beat California 3 out of 4. We've got Saberhagen pitching tonight. We're playing at home. We can get it going. One game can turn this thing around. Tonight could be that game.
And Dick Howser has that card ready to play. Bret Saberhagen, the precocious 21-year-old, a potential Cy Young winner. Weather permitting, it'll be Bret Saberhagen for the Royals tonight against veteran Doyle Alexander. Alexander has been in pro baseball 18 years, back-to-back. He's won 17 games. You had the pleasure batting against both of them.
The displeasure of batting against both of them. I usually don't play too much against them, but when I do, you take a guy like Doyle Alexander. He is what we call a finesse pitcher. He's got all good 4 pitches over the top. He changes speeds real well, but just when you think you got him figured out, he drops down 3/4 and gets you leaning, gets you out easy. The other guy, Bret Saberhagen, I would call him a power pitcher. He's a guy, he throws the ball well over 90 miles an hour, and he's got a curveball like I would compare it to Bert Blyleven's, and a changeup that of Bodeker's.
Wow. So Bret Saberhagen explains why he's a solid Cy Young candidate, and he doesn't walk many people, but he might be running after the game tonight because his wife, Janine, is expecting their first child any moment. She's in the stands. We'll keep an eye on her as well as her husband. I guess you could call this game tonight for the Royals, looking for the first win, and for Saberhagen, great expectations. So we're set for Game 3 in Kansas City, but first, this report from NBC News.
NBC Sports presents Game 3 of the 1985 American League Championship Series. Tonight from Royal Stadium, it's the Toronto Blue Jays versus the Kansas City Royals. And it's brought to you by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? By Miller Beer. Miller made the American way since 1855. By American Airlines, something special in the air. And by RCA, creators of video technology that excites the senses. Royal Stadium in Kansas City, one of the most beautiful ballparks in the majors, and just seconds ago, the rain that had been holding off for about 45 minutes began again. We're going to start this game on time, however. They anticipate about a 2-hour period of time where little or no rain will fall, then the skies may open. Down 2-0, Dick Howser calls upon his Cy Young Award candidate, 21-year-old Bret Saberhagen, a 20-game winner, to try and get the Royals back on track. He's opposed by the 35-year-old veteran Doyle Alexander. As Bobby Cox looks to get a stranglehold on this series, Alexander has won 17 in each of the last 2 seasons. Hi again, everybody. Bob Costas along with Tony Kubek. Now, when the League Championship Series was best of 5, it happened twice, once in the National League, once in the American, that a team fell behind 2-0 and rallied to win. But the more pertinent frame of reference now would be the World Series, since the League Championship Series is best of 7. And since 1955, 7 times a team has been down 2-0 and has come back to win. And on all 7 occasions, it was a team that lost the first 2 on the road and then came home, like Kansas City is doing now.
Bob, I found Dick Howser, the manager of the Royals, conversation with Rick Dempsey, and Dick Enberg, very interesting. He said, I never know what I'm going to get. We don't know what we're going to get either, because are they going to be the team that got swept by the Texas Rangers, lost 10 consecutively to the Seattle Mariners, or the team that won 3 of 4 when they had to against the California Angels in the heat of the pennant race? So we'll find out tonight, but when you talk about the 2 best young pitchers in the game, you start with Dr. K, Dwight Gooden, and you immediately go to that youngster, 21 years old, Bret Saberhagen, pitching tonight.
Does being down 2-0 and playing sloppily in Game 2 put the Royals at a psychological disadvantage? Perhaps the best answer offered by California Angels manager Gene Mogg. When asked about psychological advantages, he replied, I don't know. I never saw Freud play baseball. The starting lineup's next.
'85 has been a record-breaking year for me and for the whole family of baseball. Like any family, we've had some problems, and we're working hard to solve them. But there have been some great performances, too. Take that gentleman in California, and that kid in New York. And, of course, my forever young teammate in Chicago. So from all of us in the family of baseball to our family of friends, thanks for sharing a great season.
Major League Baseball, a family tradition. Share it all.
In order for Bret Saberhagen to get his team back in the race tonight, he's going to have to contain 4 hitters in the Toronto Blue Jays lineup. The first one being Damaso Garcia, a free swinger, first ball, fastball hitter. When he gets on base, he generates a lot of runs for their team. The second guy in that lineup who I think will provide the most power and is the most dangerous hitter tonight is Willie Upshaw. When he swings the bat hot, he can generate a lot of RBIs. Now, there's a hitter in that lineup tonight that they ought to maintain a special caution with is Ernie Witt, because he's one of those kind of hitters that'll always get that clutch hit when they need it. And a guy behind him, which I think is the upcoming star of their team now, who does it all offensively and defensively, is Jesse Barfield. Watch out for him. He's a great low ball hitter.
If it stays like this, I'm sure they would play all the way through it. Actually, the forecast calls for it to stop, as I said, for an hour and a half or 2 hours. And what we're really worried about is the possibility of heavy, steady rains along about 10:30 tonight, Kansas City time.
There are a lot of empty seats, which is probably why there wasn't a real blast of fan support welcoming this team home. They're tucked away because of the rain. This defense, Rick Dempsey commented on, is going to have to play a lot better in this ballpark than they did up in Toronto. Although really, Bob, to say they gave a game away is a little harsh, I think, game number 2, because the Blue Jays were very opportunistic. They made the most of a lot of things that were given them. A much more spacious outfield than it was up in Exhibition Stadium, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and Willie Wilson might become more of a factor because he chases the ball down and uses this field, just as Gene Mock and Doug DeCinces, who said he may have won 2 ball games in that crucial 3 or 4 series for Kansas City in September.
21-year-old Bret Saberhagen last year, when he started game 2 against the Tigers here in Kansas City, he became the youngest pitcher ever to start a league championship series game. Yielded just 6 hits in 8 innings of work, only 2 after the first inning. Probably on his way to the Cy Young Award. Either he or Ron Guidry will win it in the American League. Their records were comparable, but Saberhagen's earned run average was better, and he pitched for a team that provided him less run support than Guidry got from his Yankee teammates.
I think an indication of how hard he throws, and he is a power pitcher with a great straight change and better than average curveball, is the last at bat for Reggie Jackson in this series. Mr. October, Bret Saberhagen threw the first pitch on the outside corner at 88 miles an hour, the second one on the outside corner at 90, and the third one caught Reggie looking. It was timed at 92. He is a great athlete.
Jim Sundberg, who's warming him up right now, says the only 2 pitchers I've ever caught who had comparable control were Ferguson Jenkins and Gaylord Perry. But of course, by the time Sundberg caught them, they were veterans. This kid's 21 years old.
I think it's interesting, too, to see how Saberhagen is charged up. I watched him warm up in the bullpen with the binoculars, and he started warming up about 5 minutes, too. So he's been warming up about 25 minutes. Some said his arm was tired his last outing against Oakland.
So both series have returned to the state of Missouri, with the home clubs now down 2-0 and hoping that the change of environment will turn the series around. The Cardinals and the Dodgers will go back at it tomorrow in St. Louis. Garcia hit .282 during the regular season and drove in 65 runs, a career high. Fastball is fouled out of play.
Give you an idea how sneaky fast Saberhagen is. Well, Rick Dempsey told you, a first ball fastball hitter. That ball was right down the middle, and Garcia was late. It's a very easy delivery, holds runners on very well.
Someone once commented that Saberhagen reminded them of Catfish Hunter, not in terms of appearance, but the way he works hitters. And so the Royals have taken to calling Saberhagen Dogfish.
I think he throws harder than Catfish, and Catfish had that great slider.
There's a fastball on the corner. The plate umpire is Jim Evans, generally thought of as a low ball umpire. Would that help either pitcher tonight?
Well, neither one is basically a low ball pitcher. You could just see Saberhagen, but he got an awful lot of the outside part of the plate. If that continues with Saberhagen, with his great control, he walks very few, and Doyle Alexander on the other side, they will take advantage of what Evans gives him.
Another fastball going mostly with heat to the first batter, Damaso Garcia. You want to feel old? This even made me feel old. Someone wrote Saberhagen a letter and told him that he reminded that particular letter writer of Mel Stottlemyre. Saberhagen said, I don't know who that is.
Built about the same, 6'1". He's about 170. Hey, there's a new twist, sidearm.
Right at Biancalana, and Buddy throws Garcia out.
Biancalana and Onyx Concepcion, with really no rhyme nor reason behind the managerial strategy of Dick Howser, have played off and on. Doesn't hit them against certain pitchers. One got hurt, the other one came in, and then he just went from day to day with it.
Biancalana has started all 3 games in the league championship series, and Concepcion did not endear himself to Howser by double clutching on that play. The ball hit up the middle by Tony Fernandez to start the 2-run 10th inning rally in game 2. Mosby takes a ball right in the middle of things. On Wednesday in Toronto, the controversial catch or no catch, a couple of base hits, and he scored the winning run. They asked him what he was thinking about when all that was going on. He said, I was thinking of my mom in Portland, Arkansas, and all my relatives watching the game. He said, I know they were watching it on the big screen TV. And then he added, of course, in Portland, Arkansas, that's anyone who has a 16-inch set.
Mom said he caught it, and the reason is, he said Lloyd wouldn't lie.
3-0.
Saberhagen led the American League in fewest walks allowed per 9 innings. Around 1.5 per 9 innings pitched. Also led the American League in least amount of base runners per 9 innings.
The 3-1 pitch. He walked him.
Whoa, the bat boy came out, and Jimmy Evans, the home plate umpire, says, whoa, leave that ball alone. It was in play. So Evans bellowed out and prevented the bat boy from interfering. He has got to have a live fastball. That last one was more of a sailor. There's the young man who got shouted off by Evans, but even Sundberg, who's got those good hands, couldn't catch it. Watch this ball take off. A hard cut fastball. And Evans follows up the play and prevents the bat boy from interfering.
And it brings up Mullenix, making his first start. Orge opened when Kansas City started 2 lefties in Toronto.
The Royals got Jim Sundberg more for his catching this young staff and throwing than anything else. Look out. Saberhagen is, he'll give Sundberg a chance, but Sundberg had a really awful year throwing base stealers out this year. 17 out of 70. Last year he led the American League at 50%. Nice view, same view you get that Balboni, Mosby, and Ted Hendry, the first base umpire, get.
Mullenix hits it hard, but they might turn 2. White to Biancalana, on to Balboni, and the 4-6-3 double play. The Royals lineup starts with Lonnie Smith, seen here smiling through the pain of an 0-for-9 performance so far. They need him to get on to generate something at the top of the order. Willie Wilson has more base hits than anyone on either team, 4, one of them a game 2 home run. George Brett had 3 hits in game 1, wore a collar in game 2. Hal McRae had 2 hits on Wednesday and says that side muscle is feeling better and better, isn't inhibiting him as much. He's the DH and cleanup man. Frank White will bat 5th and play second base. Pat Sheridan, who had the dramatic pinch hit home run in the 9th inning in game 2, is in right field tonight. Steve Balboni at first base. Jim Sundberg will catch, and Buddy Biancalana plays shortstop and bats 9th.
Although the Toronto Blue Jays play on the only artificial surface in the American League East, they are good in a big ballpark because of that speed in the outfield, Ball, Mosby, and Barfield. The scouting reports on Ernie Witt, the catcher's throwing arm, were that he had a badly bruised right shoulder. Taking out a little, the report said they would be able to steal on Ernie. Well, he threw out 2 of 3 attempted base stealers in game 2, and probably would have gotten a 3rd if McRae hadn't unintentionally spun around, gotten in his way. So he has thrown the ball very quickly.
Doyle Alexander on the mound at age 35. He went 17-10 with an ERA of 3.45 and worked 260 innings.
When you talk about Doyle Alexander, it is not enough to simply say he throws 3 basic pitches: fastball, slider, change, and an occasional knuckleball. He talks about pitching like a mathematician would talk about the Pythagorean theorem. He talks about his basic pitch, that he comes on the top, 3/4 aside, changes angles with his arm, and does different things with the fastball.
It looked for a while as if his career was over. From late April 1982 to late August 1983, he was 1-15, including 0-6 at the start of his tenure with the Blue Jays. But since then, he's 42-17, and Bobby Cox said, no, we never considered releasing him, even at his lowest point, because we thought his arm was live, and he was still throwing the ball well. Barfield in right field makes the catch, and Smith is now 0-10 in the series as he flies out on the first pitch.
Bobby Cox had Doyle Alexander at Atlanta, knew what kind of pitcher he was. And Alexander, some consider the best pitcher the Blue Jays have, and I include Dave Steve over the last 2.5 years. This ball club in September and October, for the Blue Jays, he's been 15-3.
Well, if the Blue Jays were choking in the final week, Alexander performed baseball's version of the Heimlich maneuver by stepping in and beating the Yankees last Saturday 5-1, and that was the division clincher just when the anxiety had begun to set in. Olenek in close, as you saw, against Wilson. 1-1 to him.
Try and power away him inside from the left side of the plate. That's what Alexander will want to do. And also with that circle change, we're trying to explain that later, one of the best changeups in the business.
Fouled out of play, a ball and 2 strikes.
Alexander is not a finesse pitcher at all times, like some people say. He has thrown the fastball this year at times almost 90 miles an hour. And he'll get late in the game, and at times he will get stronger.
Line drive base hit, the 5th of the series for Willie Wilson. Most of the seats, by the way, are now filled as the rain has stopped and people begin filing back down the aisles.
I would expect, Bob, that we'll see a little bit better leadoff first base by Willie Wilson than he had when McRae was up. He didn't go till it was a 2-2 count. Never had a foot on the turf, and he's got to start being a little more aggressive on the base pass. Alexander will hold the ball, step off, quick pitch. That'll be out of 2 feet, 2-foot better lead now than he had up in Exhibition Stadium when he was on.
When you consider Bret's RBI total of 112, and then consider the fact that the Royals as a team had the lowest on-base percentage in the entire league, you realize that he didn't have the opportunities to drive home runs that a guy like Don Mattingly had with the Yanks, and that's to take nothing away from Mattingly, who will probably be the MVP. Wilson fakes, doesn't go, the pitch is high.
Mike Ferraro flashing the signs across to Wilson. Former Cleveland manager.
Jose Martinez is their coach at first. There goes Wilson, swing and a miss, and they got him.
Wow.
So Witt has thrown out his 3rd base runner of the series.
Stick Voltaggio down there. It looked like Wilson had a pretty good jump. The swipe tag was his foot on the bag, and he hit him up near the knee. That's what it appeared to be live. That'll bring Howser out. He's going to check with Wilson, say, how did you see it? And he will say, I trust my players. Alexander held the ball, and then he threw a changeup. A difficult pitch for Ernie Witt to dig out down low and throw Wilson out, if in fact he did. So Witt has now gotten 3 of the last 4 who've attempted against him. Got 2 of 3 in the 8th, 9th, and 10th inning in game number 2. Look at it. Tony Fernandez. A decent jump. He scoops it out. Is the foot on the bag and he tags him on the knee? I believe so, but it's very, very close for Vic Voltaggio. They're looking at the ball now. Howser, which is very interesting. It is close, but I believe that foot was on the bag and he hit him on the knee. That hard straight-in slide. Howser on the way back asked Evans and Voltaggio to look at the baseball.
Is Alexander often suspected of doctoring him up?
Well, his fastball does about 3 different things. Short hop by Fernandez, high home plate. He's safe, folks, you betcha. So the Blue Jays get another break.
A ball and a strike to Bret. Wow. Well hit, deep right. If it stays fair, the Royals are in front. And they are. Home run Bret. They say they try and pitch around him. In one game in August, they charted the pitches. He saw 15. 12 of them were balls. The 3 in the strike zone resulted in 2 homers and a double. You can't dance around him forever. He comes out for the curtain call.
And I believe he had a changeup. Remember when Tom Hinkey struck him up? Exhibition Stadium got him with 2 forkballs, off-speed pitches.
Ball 1 to McRae. So you don't know if the pitching pattern would have been the same, but it's possible that the call at second cost Kansas City a run.
We talk about when we mentioned that Doyle Alexander speaks of changing the angle of his arm to give more variety to his pitches. So if he comes over the top, 3/4, or sidearm as he did, that's 3 variations on the fastball along with 3 different movements.
Doyle Alexander has made 1 appearance, and as you see, he's been known to give up the gopher ball. He's made 1 appearance in League Championship Series play. Back in 1973 with the Baltimore Orioles against Oakland, and he lost to Catfish Hunter. Tonight, facing the youngster they call Dogfish. Fastball swung on and missed. So Alexander is out of the inning, but not before Bret bruises him with this one. And after 1, it's the Royals 1 and the Blue Jays nothing. A ball and a strike to Bret. Wow. Well hit, deep right. If it stays fair, the Royals are in front. And they are. Home run Bret.
You'll see by this replay that Willie Wilson is safe. But this may be a blessing in disguise for the Kansas City Royals, because then first base would have been open. Doyle Alexander, the wily old curmudgeon, would probably have put Bret on, not intentionally, to face McRae and White, the 2 right-handed hitters. So perhaps you can look at it 2 ways. Maybe they wouldn't have pitched to Bret and it wouldn't be a 1-0 lead.
Upshaw, Oliver, and Bell in the Toronto second. Curveball from Saberhagen drops out of the strike zone. You heard Rick Dempsey on the pregame show. He likens Saberhagen's curve to that of Blyleven and his changeup to his teammate Mike Boddicker. 1-1. That's pretty classy company.
I guess. And his fastball is live. We saw the one that got away from Sundberg when he issued the walk to Mosby. It was a cutter on a flat plane moving into the left-handed hitter. He will run it away and he can sink it. So Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach, has had to really put some time in with the young kids here. There's the change.
You know, Toronto has scored 6 runs in each of the first 2 games. You might get the idea they're really pounding the ball. Not so. They have only 3 extra base hits, 2 of them by a man not in the lineup tonight. Cliff Johnson has 2 doubles. The other by George Bell was a check swing double. Smacked right at White. Fields it cleanly and throws him out. Now it's Al Oliver, and what a week it's been for him. Just a few days removed from his 39th birthday. First, he had $12,000 worth of jewelry that had been stolen from the Toronto clubhouse recovered. It included a World Series ring and his wedding ring.
And that gold scoop, solid gold, that he hangs around his neck when he used to play first base for the Pittsburgh Pirates.
He goes to the opposite field just as he did for the game winner on Wednesday, and he's got himself a base hit. Smith gets it back in, and Oliver settles for a single.
That's what speed in the outfield does. It is a very slick outfield, even on this drain-through 8 turf. You will see a splash come up. The water's supposed to drain right through the openings. And only Lonnie Smith's speed, they've called him skates. He can be brilliant, as he just was, preventing a double, possible triple. Or he can be a problem out there with his arm.
You may have heard a few boos for George Bell. That stems from the near altercation with Bud Black in game 2. Black hit him with a pitch for the 2nd time this season, and Bell objected, and Black replied, look, every time you pitch this guy inside, he thinks you're trying to hit him. That's ridiculous. He's not going to change, but I'm not going to change the way I pitch him either. One-0 pitch. Fastball hit through the middle. Oliver will stop at second as Wilson gets it back in.
Saberhagen looked at George Bell after he threw that pitch and said, you're not supposed to hit that. You're supposed to be a low ball hitter. And he threw a ball, I think, right where he wanted, up and in, and he fought it off the fence, right up the middle of the diamond.
The Blue Jays have taken advantage of those opportunities.
Richard Green report to man accommodation.
Ernie Witt can't believe it. The center fielder, Willie Wilson, is playing very, very shallow for Ernie Witt, who didn't like that call. Look at Wilson. That'll show you how much confidence he has going back on the ball, because it's about 410 feet to dead center. A good throwing arm belongs to Sheridan and Wright.
2 quick strikes.
He's going to have fun if Jim Evans gives him that pitch. If he gets that call, that was a sinking fastball. Probably went with the seams, turned it over. What it does to a hitter is, if the hitter knows Evans is going to give Saberhagen that pitch, he'll start striding into the ball or move up on the plate, and then you become vulnerable to what might be Ernie's strength, inside part of the plate. He's already crept closer to the plate.
0-2 pitch swung on and missed. A high fastball. First strikeout for Saberhagen.
It's the other thing it does to you. Figure if he's going to give it to him, am I goofed up at the plate? I have to swing at him.
Number 29, Jesse Barfield, right field.
A running fastball. He does things with his fastball like the veteran Doyle Alexander. He's already sunk it, run it away, and rode it inside. Imagine a 21-year-old being able to do that.
Now Barfield, a powerful guy to have in the 8th spot in your order. Fernandez on deck. Cox has frequently hit Barfield 8th against right-handers.
That's where the balance of this club comes in. He's a .290 hitter during the season. With 27 home runs and 84 runs batted in out of the 8th spot. Check that out with what's happening to Dick Howser's lineup. 8th and 9th.
1-1 pitch. Missed outside. Well, in the 8th spot for Howser, there's Jim Sundberg, by no means an automatic out, but a .245 hitter with 10 homers, as against Barfield's .289 with 27. Bianca Lana hit .188 in limited duty. He's hitting 9th. The Toronto shortstop and 9th hitter, Tony Fernandez, drove in 51 runs and hit .289. 2-2 the count. Watch Saberhagen throughout the game. He doesn't show much emotion, almost a serene countenance out there. Up high with the fastball, and the count is full, so both runners will be moving. Comes back with a fastball and gets him swinging. So in the crunch, Saberhagen challenged both Witt and Barfield and fanned them each with fastballs. Bret Saberhagen in the Kansas City dugout, and up in our booth, Janine Saberhagen, who is expecting Janine literally any moment. Could be tonight, possibly, right? Now, we want you to know we are not playing favorites. We just thought that a woman 9 months pregnant should be comfortable up out of the possible rain. And if there are any Blue Jay wives at Royal Stadium tonight who are also 9 months pregnant, they're invited to come on up too.
And you probably don't know this, but I know Randy, your wife, is expecting also. So if something happens during the game, I delegate Bob Costas to need to take you because he needs the experience. Thanks for stopping by.
We go to the bottom of the second. It'll be Frank White, Pat Sheridan, and Steve Balboni.
20. Frank White, second base.
A warm reception for White. Many times an All-Star, playing in a Royals uniform. A 6-time Gold Glove Award winner.
Those 28 home runs you talked about with Doyle Alexander during the regular season, a lot of them came the first 4 months of the season or so. Lot with nobody on. Lot because he was getting behind hitters and walking a lot early. First 19 of 25 home runs that Doyle Alexander gave were without anybody on base. And a lot of them were not mistakes because they were in that little bandbox up in Toronto, Exhibition Stadium.
Alexander is one of 2 active pitchers to have beaten every existing major league team, all 26 of them. Drops down sidearm and gets the called strike. The other active pitcher to do it is Don Sutton. There are 3 others who have recently retired: Gaylord Perry, Mike Torres, and Rick Wise. Again, he comes sidearm, a little soft one that is picked up by Garcia, and he throws him out. Got right in on White's fist with that one.
Batting sixth, number 15, Pat Sheridan, right field.
And now Pat Sheridan, who thought he was going to be one of the heroes of Game 2. Down by a run against Tom Henke in the 9th inning Wednesday. He curls this one around the foul pole for a pinch hit homer. Tied the game up. The Royals later took the lead in the 10th with Quisenberry on the mound. You've got to like your chances in that situation, but the Blue Jays scored twice in the bottom half to pull it out.
Well, you rehashed that game, and they did some things right for Howser. They got a 3-run lead. They got a good outing by Black, this dramatic home run. And Quiz needed to get 3 outs, didn't get some help with his defense, though.
Bullet, and Upshaw couldn't come up with it.
Should be an error. Hit like a bullet is right. A changeup that was up again. Doyle has not been able to get that where he wants it at this point. He had one that wasn't quite down enough to Bret for a home run. It is a very slick field. It'll be an error on Upshaw, I would think. Sheridan has some running speed. Here it is from that right field camera. Out over the plate, but belled high. Willie couldn't get down in time. What they've done in those dirt portions you're looking at, head groundskeeper George Tolman, with all the rains and rain expected during the day today, threw about 50 pounds of that drying agent around each dirt patch. It's like kitty litter. It absorbs moisture.
Fastball is high. During the year, the Royals hit a club record 154 homers, but this is not a place conducive to the long ball, and thus 87 of those home runs came on the road. Balboni takes it to right field. Barfield is right there for the catch.
Looked like a very defensive swing from Balboni, but I believe with one out and Sheridan on first, Damaso Garcia was giving him a big gap, and he tried to slap the ball through there, something that hitting instructor Lee May has asked him to do. Double play situations, you've got to try and move base runners on occasion. Still strikes out a lot, but you can see he was tied up inside, tried to slice it, but on the ground to the right side.
Now it'll be Sundberg. He had an RBI double in game 2. Sheridan at first with 2 out now.
Alexander, originally a Dodger product, like Laurel Hershiser last night. They teach better than anybody else how to hold runners on.
Sheridan bluffed, good throws behind him, and almost got it.
Alexander quick pitched. He was going to go and took about 4 quick steps, decided to retreat. He thought it might be a pitch out. And Doyle, although it wasn't a called pitch out, might have done it on his own. He may have had an inkling that Sheridan was going at the last instant.
Not going this time. Called strike. You mentioned that Alexander started out with the Dodgers. He's been with 7 major league teams: the Dodgers, the Braves, the Rangers, the Giants, the Orioles, the Yankees, and now the Blue Jays.
So that was some dramatic television last night. Listen to Vin and Joe and those camera shots. With Coleman and McGee on the first 2 hitters.
First time it's happened all year that each of them was thrown out in the same inning. Got to tip your cap to Mike Scioscia. Alexander knows what it's all about, the good and the bad in this game. Traded 5 times, signed once as a free agent, released on another occasion. Sheridan is going, and Sundberg lofts it to center field. Easy chance for Mosby, and the Royals' second is history. No runs, no hits, an error, but it doesn't come back to haunt Toronto. Still 1-0, and we'll be back after these messages from your local station. Game 3 of the 1985 American League Championship Series is brought to you by Manville. 21,000 people with one goal: to be America's very best supplier. And by Domino's Pizza. Domino's Pizza delivers. One call does it all. Tony, neither you nor I are much of a fan of artificial surface, but this still ranks as one of the most beautiful parks in all of baseball, and if you put natural grass in it, it'd be absolute paradise.
And this game would have no chance of having been played tonight because of the 4 or 5 days of rain and the flooding in the area, if not for that turf. So there is a little bit of a benefit.
Fernandez swings on the first one, skies it to left. Lonnie Smith wants it. Lonnie Smith has it.
What wind there is tonight is blowing out to left field. Ordinarily at this time of the year, remember the Philadelphia World Series here, it was blowing out to right, out of the north. So it will carry the ball to left field. Both Alexander and Saberhagen will try to use the big part of the ballpark. Run that fastball away, come inside off the plate. He's got a big strike zone. It's going to be tough for some of these hitters if these 2 control pitchers stay out there.
A 1 pitch to Garcia. Fastball is ripped fair for extra bases, down into the corner and left. It can be tricky down there. Lonnie Smith plays it cautiously, then juggles it, and Garcia never stopped. He's at third. Lonnie Smith, aware of the fact that sometimes the ball can act as if it were caught in a pinball machine here at Royal Stadium, purposely played it safe, let it practically roll to a stop, and still kicked it.
Lloyd Mosby.
It's a double and an error.
Bret playing in. which always surprises me with Damaso Garcia, because I don't think he's tried to bunt at any time in his major league career. Played tight, he drives it by you, or he bounces it over your head. There's the double in an air. Damaso Garcia on the hard slide landed very hard on that left knee. A knee as Kenny Carson now, and he hurt it on the slide. He didn't get help. Jimmy Williams, the third base coach, the play was in front of him, and he accelerated when he didn't pick up the ball. Damaso Garcia has had a problem with his right knee. He was on the Pan Am soccer team, amateur soccer team for the Dominican Republic. Didn't play much baseball. Epi Guerrero, the Latin American scout, convinced him to become a ball player and work with him. But then in that 3 of 4 series where the Blue Jays won against the Yankees, Ricky Henderson hit him on the left knee. Tore his knee up. He was out considerably in September. He jammed it again. It'll take his running away and his range on this turf.
So the Blue Jays look to tie it, trailing 1-0, man at third, 1 out. Strike 1 to Mosby.
Conceding the run, except for George Brett at third base. They're back, the rest of the infield.
A ball and a strike. Inside, 2-1. Count levels to him, 2-2.
You get his arms extended like that, he can hurt you. He has power to left center field. The outfield has shaded him that way with Saberhagen's fastball. Look at Willie Wilson. Gaps in right center.
2-2 pitch. Slaps it. Brett makes a fine play and comes home. What a play! Yeah, you can smile, George. Why not?
Who said he can't play defense? Watch how far he goes on this high hopper. It wasn't hit easy. Extends fully, off balance throw. Missed Garcia. The block off by Sundberg. Who said they can't play defense? An outstanding play. So well, George doesn't have to come out and take a bow. He's already done it once with his home run. He's out there. He took Lonnie Smith off the hook.
Mosby now at first with 2 out. They pitch out, but Bobby Cox had nothing on. The Blue Jays have been nothing if not aggressive. Bell has twice tried daring base running plays in the first 2 games and made them pay off. And now Mosby is picked off.
There's Ted Hendry in the middle of it again. Billy Smith saying, stay off him. We don't want you thrown out. Out comes Bobby Cox.
Hendry is the guy who didn't make the call on Mosby's controversial catch or no catch in game 2, relying instead on Davey Phillips, who was far away from the play.
We will show you a couple of angles. Watch Saberhagen and how quick he is over to first base. He's so quick, he really should have been out. But Balboni makes a slow tag with the glove on the left hand. Now we'll show you the angle that shows that the fingers are on the bag and the tag comes late on the elbow. The fingers on the bag, here comes the tag. Another tough call for an umpire. I think he was missed again.
And toward the end of that argument, just before we went to the commercial, Mosby looked at Hendry and said, that's 2, referring to the 10th inning call Wednesday and now this one. Billy Smith, the first base coach, trying to keep him from getting ejected. I hope Mom back in Portland, Arkansas wasn't reading lips.
All clean stuff, Mom. Lloyd was gone. He looked like he was leaning a little bit. Hands on the bag, and now he gets it. Do you think the umpires aren't under a lot of pressure with cameras from every angle?
And generally speaking, those cameras will bear the umpire out. A couple of times, however, in this series, a couple of times tonight, that hasn't been the case. In the case of Dave Phillips' call in Game 2, look at every replay, slow it down, blow up the picture, still inconclusive. One of the toughest calls an umpire has had to face in a pressure situation in a long time, especially since it shouldn't have been Davey's call in the first place. One and two to Biancalana. You know, I started to say, Tony, the Blue Jays obviously have decided they're going to go for broke on the bases. They twice ran through stop signs by third base coach Jimmy Williams on Wednesday, and both times the runner scored. First Bell, then Fernandez. Bell has made a couple of daring and successful moves on the bases, stretching a single into a double, going from first to third on a ground out. Garcia never slowed down when Smith misplayed the ball in the corner, ran it down to third base, and they had the contact play on with one out. Garcia coming home on the play Bret made. Biancalana swings and misses for strike three, and it's the second strikeout for Alexander.
You know, that's the spot in the lineup I've wondered why Dick Howser hasn't changed the ninth spot. He has flip-flopped Lonnie Smith and Willie Wilson because of Smith's higher on-base percentage. But if you want to get people on for your three-hitter, George Brett, the nine-hitter with the DH in this league, it's not like with a pitcher over in the National League. He can be a residue or keep something going even though the first two hitters make out. So you can't blame only the first two for not getting on for Brett. You got to go back to the nine-hitter.
Comes sidearm. Smith goes to the opposite field with it, but Jesse Barfield tracks it down.
Jesse, who when Lloyd Mosby's out, which was infrequently this year, became the center fielder and played that position well too. Very few can go into the corner like Jesse Barfield does in right field and hold you to a single with that strong arm and quickness. Playing every day has helped him in all aspects of his game.
That outfield is Toronto's pride and joy. The youngsters, Bell, Mosby, and Barfield, left to right, all born within 2 weeks of each other in October and early November of 1959.
They run, throw, hit, and hit for some power.
Wilson checked his swing. It's ball two. There you go. Bell is the Libra, and Barfield and Mosby are the Scorpios, if you believe in that stuff. 2-1. Upshaw on the short hop. Alexander covers. And it remains 1-0 Kansas City. A lead George Brett forged with his bat and later preserved with his glove. Our producer Ken Edmondson pleads with us to tell you that that is in fact the correct spelling of Jimmy Williams' name, just one M, and Billy Smith, longtime baseball man, the coach at first.
I wonder how many managerial lists Major League Jimmy Williams' name is on. You can scratch the Atlanta Braves. They hired Chuck Tanner to have given him a 5-year contract.
Saberhagen has 3 left-handed batters to face in the heart of the Toronto order: Mullenix, Upshaw, and Oliver in the 4th. Only a 19th round selection in the June 1982 free agent draft, partly because Saberhagen had a sore arm as a senior in high school. It still didn't stop him from pitching a near perfect game for Cleveland High in Southern California in the state title game played at Dodger Stadium.
He was also a highly recruited basketball player coming out of Orange County.
Wasn't his team the LA City champs one year?
Yep.
1-2 to Mullenix.
Mullenix came through this Kansas City Royals organization, spent some time here. And of course he learned, he says, all he knows about this game from Hal McRae. Hal McRae, of course, taught the hitting style by the late Charlie Lau. Flat bat theory. You know, it's almost parallel to the ground instead of straight up. Gray does.
The Royals traded Mullenix to Toronto just prior to the 1982 season for pitcher Phil Huffman, who's now out of baseball. Good deal for Toronto.
Bobby Doerr, still a part-time hitting instructor, the former Red Sox player, says that Mullenix is probably the best natural hitter on this ball club. Difficult to pitch because he uses the entire field.
He hit .295 with 10 homers, platooning with Garth Orge at third base.
They're going to pitch inside and force him to pull the ball. There's a changeup. They're not going to let him get that fastball out over the plate and go the other way as he did the other night.
For Saberhagen, strikeout number 3.
The first baseman, Willie Upshaw.
He pulled the string and his changeup ran away, and almost like Doyle Alexander's had a little screwball action. A little tail.
Upshaw grounded sharply to White in his only plate appearance thus far. Takes a strike.
I often wonder about Saberhagen and Dwight Gooden. When you think of Saberhagen, who's added about 5 miles an hour to his fastball this year, getting it up to about 92 or 3, what might he be when he matures? And Gooden the same way. He's only 20. Can he throw 100 miles an hour someday? He might. He's going to get physically stronger. That'd really be cruel, wouldn't it?
Well hit by Upshaw. Might make it up the gap in between Smith and Wilson and to the wall. At least a double. Smith plays it cleanly, gets it in, and a 1-out 2-bagger.
The designated hitter, Al Oliver.
Willie Upshaw from Blanco, Texas, with 7 brothers, 7 sisters. Gene Upshaw, head of the NFL's Players Association, a cousin. He's kind of a quiet leader. Started very poorly this year, started to go up the middle the opposite way, was platooned for a while. His average has gone up steadily over the last 3.5 months.
Oliver singled to left in the second. Strike 1 to him. He provided plenty of tickets for those Toronto detectives who recovered the lost jewelry, and he provided himself with another treasure, a memory to cherish, that game-winning hit in Game 2.
They always get their man, the RCMP.
What was it Al said? Sure, you expect the police to investigate, but you think that the stuff is gone. What a town. 1 on, 1 out, and the 1-1 pitch coming. Again, he goes to left field. This one up too high, and Smith will get to it.
The left fielder, George Bell.
George Bell now will try and pick Upshaw up. He hit .275 for the year with 28 homers and 95 RBIs despite slumping in the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Well, you mentioned earlier, I guess we mentioned one of the first 2 ball games about George Bell with his penchant for getting very upset when you pitch him inside. And in his defense, he was hit in the face in the minor leagues and missed a good part of the season. Jaw wired, corrective surgery. So these flashbacks, and if you've never been hit, I never was, I don't know what it feels like nor how you react the rest of your career. You pitch inside and he gets very upset at it if you come too close.
Fastball for a strike. Have you seen the figures on the number of hit batsmen in the American League as opposed to the National League over the last 3 or 4 years? Many more in the American League, and it becomes more and more apparent. The reason is pitchers don't have to worry about retaliation.
The DH, they don't have to bat.
Here comes the 1-2 pitch. On the corner with the fastball for his 4th strikeout, and the Upshaw double is wasted. Bret will be the leadoff man in the bottom of the 4th. Still 1-0 KC. Over in the National League, Steve Garvey has 8 homers in league championship play. That's the overall record. Bret is right behind with 7, and Reggie Jackson has hit 6. That's in the playoffs as distinct from the World Series. Maybe this guy is the new Mr. October. 348 lifetime in league championship series play with the 7 homers. This is number 7 in the first inning tonight, and an all-time record league championship series slugging percentage of .719. He also hit .375 in his only World Series. Here's his defensive play to maintain the 1-0 lead.
That was after Garcia had doubled and Lonnie Smith couldn't pick the ball up. Allowed Garcia, he was charging there, to go to third. Off balance. I don't think it can be said of George Brett any longer that he is a poor defensive third baseman. He has always had good range. The arm is erratic. He had to make a good throw then, and he did.
In fact, there are some who contend that he'll win his first Gold Glove this year. Some evidence on his side, the play you just saw on the Lloyd Mosby bouncer, and the great throw to the plate to get Garcia.
And still using the marvelous Marv Throneberry model bat. Wasn't much of a home run hitter in the minor leagues, nor was Mattingly. Boggs is credited by him with teaching him how to pull the ball.
So Marv Throneberry's name has a way of cropping up, no matter what. He'll live forever in baseball history.
Is that pine tar legal?
Well, they rewrote the rule as a result of that brouhaha a few seasons back. Well hit to right again. Is this number 2? Off the wall, off the top of the wall, at least a double, and he'll stop there. He missed number 2 by inches.
George didn't get all of this. It's a little low cut fastball that got up on the fist, and he drives it near the 385 mark. Barfield just over the top of his glove, missed by 6 inches to a foot of being another home run. Jesse has it timed right. Missed it by 6 inches. Hard to pitch around Bret when there's nobody on base, and maybe they should start.
And now updating lightning fast. His slugging percentage in the playoffs, .733. Has 5 hits in this series, including 2 doubles and a homer. Strike 1 to McRae.
See if McRae can get the ball to the right side now. It's a cat and mouse game here. Alexander and Witt know with nobody out, runner on second. McRae's job is to go to the right side. There's sometimes with the McRae, the cleanup hitter, you can pitch him inside, he'll turn on him.
Down the right field line, and it drops untouched.
Barfield can't get quite high enough on Bret's double. Sometimes, as your cleanup hitter and you've got a team like the Royals who have difficulty scoring runs, as a manager, you might say, hey, forget going to right field, drive it in. If he comes inside, so now it's 2 strikes, with a changeup, it's going to hit for himself.
In case there's any confusion, that did hit on the interior wall. It hit above the padding, but on the interior wall. There's another wall 10 or 15 feet behind that in front of the fountain. But it hit alongside that 385 mark and definitely was in play. McRae lifts one into right center field with Mosby and Barfield chasing it, and Jesse makes a good backhanded catch as Bret tags and advances to third.
You just saw how good a hitter Hal McRae is. 1 ball, 2 strikes. He kept taking a shot the opposite way. Bret tags up, goes to third, just 1 out.
The second baseman, Frank White.
Nice play by Barfield, who was playing very shallow and toward the right field line. He chased that ball down on a very wet surface. Infield now going to be forced to come in. The way Saberhagen's pitching. imagine Hal McRae back in June had put his house up for sale the last year of his contract this year. Never figured he'd be a Royal or get much playing time. He had a good August and September, though.
Infield in with White at the plate. This will get the run home and maybe more than that. It is caught by Barfield. Oh, what a catch. And Bret trots home with the second run. The first catch was good. This one was great.
That is good, solid baseball on both ends. McRae's ball gets him to third. This long sac fly. What a confident player Barfield's become since he no longer platoons. He was so tentative defensively. Balls would pop out of his glove at times. His throwing was erratic. He'd overthrow cutoff men. He really went and got that one.
They had platooned him with Dave Collins prior to this year, and they traded Collins to Oakland and gave the job full-time to Barfield. Sheridan reached on Upshaw's error in the second. Strike one to him.
That ball left the bat. It looked like Sheridan would be coming up. Just one out and a man on second, maybe third, if not for Barfield.
Fastball is drilled, and Barfield will record all three putouts. But Bret scores the second run for Kansas City. They lead it 2-0, and we'll be right back after these messages from your local station. Game 3 of the 1985 American League Championship Series is brought to you by AT&T and long-distance services, information systems, telephones, and computers. AT&T is the right choice. And by Wheaties, crispy, crunchy, tasty wheat. Wheaties, what the big boys eat. Picturesque Royal Stadium. You know, they tell me that the city of Kansas City has more fountains than any other city in America. And in fact, only Rome has more anywhere in the world. Kind of a little fact from the Chamber of Commerce for you, Tony. Witt takes the curveball into right field for an inning opening base hit.
Bret Saberhagen's been a pretty good stopper for this Royals team and Dick Howser. He finished very strong. He's trying to shut down a 2-game losing streak and keep this thing alive. Go back to Toronto. Jesse Barfield. He's hit for power. He's thrown out a lot of key runners. He's kept runners from going first and third and scoring from second all year long. And he just takes a double away from Frank White. The thing about Saberhagen, a lot of pitchers, especially young pitchers, will get in the groove. Their fastball, if they're pitching to a left-hander, they stay outside, and to make the adjustment to go outside on a right-hander is not as easy as it looked. Different release point, maybe a different stride, and he seems to do it automatically. I don't think it's something you can teach. The Dodgers teach it as good as anybody.
Out of play down the right side.
Basically what Saberhagen will probably try and do a good part of this ball game, keep the fastball away from the right and left-handed hitters. That's what he's done so far tonight. He's got one pitch into Garcia, drilled in the corner, but let Willie Wilson chase it down to right and left center field. He trusts in Willie.
1-2 pitch. Fastball hit well to right field. Is it a game tire? You bet. Jesse Barfield has evened the issue at 2.
Barfield made some kind of gesture to George Brett as he went by him. Georgie may have said nice hitting or nice adjusting because he kept the ball away, and Barfield, who has learned from Cito Gaston, the hitting instructor, to cut down his swing, and if they stay away, go with it. And he just did show you how strong a young man he is. Here's Cecil Fielder. Two slot for a while with Upshaw, Lewis Thornton behind.
So the Blue Jays, who came from behind to win game 2 after trailing 3-0, have erased a 2-0 deficit here. There's Barfield, a hero with the glove and now the stick for Bobby Cox's team.
Saberhagen had given up 19 home runs during the regular season in 235 innings pitched. We haven't seen a whole lot of his breaking ball yet tonight, and just a few straight changes.
Part of that is the pitching staff. Another part is the ballpark. That missed inside. 2-1. Into left field, Lonnie Smith will be there, and that's the first out.
Product of San Pedro de Macorís, the Dominican Republic. Manny Lee, a switch-hitting 20-year-old on the bench. They kept him all year. Drafted him off the Houston roster after the trade with the Mets for Ray Knight.
George Bell, another product of the Dominican. Garcia. And Damaso fouls this one out of play. All teams, of course, are now alerted to the great pool of talent in the Dominican Republic, but early on the Blue Jays really scouted that area, worked it heavily. Oh, 0-2. In fact, Pat Gillick even found a wife there. He met his wife Doris, who was a Pan American stewardess, on a trip to the Dominican Republic, so that scouting trip worked out all right just as well. Garcia with a fair ball into the right field corner. Sheridan comes up with it, but not before Damaso has a double.
So try and defense Garcia when he's hot. He threw the fastball up and in. He rifled it in the left field corner. Threw the fastball out over the plate. He goes the other way this time. When he's hot, he's an outstanding leadoff hitter. When he's not, well, Bobby keeps him in the '1 spot, but because he doesn't get many walks, that'll bring out Gary Blaylock, the pitching coach. Talking about the Dominican, I think Howie Hake, that's a great Pittsburgh scout, and Joe Brown, who came back as the general manager for a while this year, were some of the first to go down there.
And with Blaylock visiting Saberhagen, the action begins in the Kansas City bullpen.
Steve Farr, the right-hander, and Bud Black, the left-hander. So apparently Danny Jackson is going to start that game.
During one of Saberhagen's starts this year, someone noticed that the lights were off in the Kansas City bullpen. They asked Dan Quisenberry about it. He said, with Saberhagen out there, why waste electricity?
Liebrand is scheduled for game 4. Danny Jackson, game 5. Bobby Cox is not committed at this point as Gary Blaylock, a former Yankee teammate, returns to the dugout. Bobby Cox said, I'm not going to say until after this game tonight, maybe think about it till 1 o'clock in the morning whether I'm coming back with Steve for game 4 on 3 days rest.
If not, it would be Jim Clancy. But he told us earlier tonight there is Steve, who pitched so masterfully in game 1. Cox told us earlier tonight he is leaning towards Steve right now. Another off-speed pitch, and Mosby got a piece of it.
That perhaps is what Gary Blaylock was out to tell Saberhagen, that you're sticking with the fastball, got one pattern. Sundberg knows that too. He's behind the plate. Perhaps Saberhagen was shaking him off earlier. Now he's throwing a couple of off-speed pitches. Out.
It got Saberhagen, and it caroms into the outfield. Garcia will score, rule it as a base hit for Mosby, and a 3-2 lead for Toronto, and Saberhagen is hobbling.
Very, very solidly, too. Out will come Mickey Cobb, the trainer. This is such a valuable, valuable piece of property. Appeared to hit him on the left ankle.
And that expression, and sprawled out as he is, reminiscent of Joaquin Andujar in Game 3 of the 1982 World Series at Milwaukee between the Brewers and Cardinals.
Right off his knee again. He can't move. He's hurt. Andujar is hurt. He is down. Here comes Gene Gieselman. He was hit a line drive, but he's hurt this time on the kneecap. He is in real pain.
Doc on it.
Although Saberhagen doesn't quite have the theatrical flair possessed by Andujar, but then few do.
What a shame. Got a ball down. Mosby hit it hard, and it didn't glance off. It hit it very, very solidly. Mickey Cobb, the trainer, freezing the area for temporary relief to try and prevent swelling. Doesn't look like there's any way that Saberhagen can continue in this ball game, and we hope it isn't the last we'll see of him in this league championship series. 21 years old, gifted with an amazing comprehension and a feel for pitching. Not just good stuff. He's got good stuff, a lot of other guys too. Some don't really develop, mature physically, emotionally, mentally till their mid-20s, late 20s. He did it last year as a 20-year-old kid. Picked it up again this year.
You can bet he wants to continue. The Blue Jays have 8 hits off of him in less than 5 innings, and he's going to stay in.
Well, the stories you hear about the late Dizzy Dean, line drive, it was an all-star game, wasn't it, off the bat of Earl Averill? Thought he changed his delivery. Never really came back to pitch effectively again, so you've got to be careful with a 21-year-old.
One more look.
Right out over the plate. Garcia comes home with a tiebreaker. 3-2 now.
On that angle, you couldn't see exactly where it hit him. Maybe now we can. Lower part of the right leg, it appeared, and you can tell how hard it hit him. It caromed all the way into short left on the fly.
I guess Bret Saberhagen has talked Mickey Cobb and Dick Howser into letting him stay in, and that he's all right. He still doesn't look all right standing behind the mound. The Royals went into this league championship series with just 8 pitchers. Mike Jones, the left-hander,
the third baseman, Rance Mulligan,
is not active. And if somebody goes out, you cannot replace with another player in the league championship series. World Series, you got different rosters and different rules.
Now it's Mullenix. Mosby at first. He was picked off the last time.
He's hurting. He tried to pivot and throw to first base, and he didn't do it very quickly or surely.
The inning began with Witt singling. Barfield hit an opposite field home run to right to tie the game at 2 apiece. Then after Fernandez flied to left, Garcia doubled, and Mosby singled him home. 3-2 Toronto, called strike. In another half inning, regardless of the score, this will be an official ball game. If one team or the other has the lead, keep in mind the prospect of rain, which is very much in the forecast for later, and they say it may rain heavily and continuously for hours.
The regular season rules would apply. For 5, it's rained out, it goes in the books.
Although they'd wait much longer than in your average regular season game for a variety of reasons. And television is not the least of them. Mullenix drills one. Deep right field, and see you later. It's 5-2 Toronto. And a happy flock of Blue Jays as they sense a 3-0 lead in the series. That's all for Saberhagen.
A manager, even though he doesn't admit it, second guesses himself. Howser, I'm sure, is right now. He got talked into it by Saberhagen saying he's all right, and he's not. Well, so twice. Last 2 games, Dick Howser got what he hadn't had in his first 7 postseason games with the Royals. A lead. He got a 3-0 lead for Bud Black. In game 2, he had a lead here, and it disappeared again.
Mullenix drills one. Deep right field, and see you later. An almost eerie silence now settles over Royals Stadium. They were whooping it up when Saberhagen had a 2-0 lead. You can see how infrequently he's had starts like this. But he leaves now on the short end of a 5-2 score. And in comes Bud Black, who pitched and pitched well in game 2 before departing when that Tony Fernandez liner caught him squarely in the ribs. Turned out he was all right. They didn't even take x-rays, but it really knocked the wind out of him. Black is not in here for a long stint. Upshaw is due, and then Oliver, 2 left-handed hitters with 1 out in the 5th inning. And so Howser may be just asking Black to get him out of this inning, and then he'll go from there.
Go with the 8-man pitching staff into postseason play. This is what can happen. He gave him 7 innings in game 2, coming back with a day off. And in this ball game, perhaps for just a couple left-handed hitters. Although the bullpen is now quiet for the Royals. There's your score, 5-2.
So the Blue Jays have finally unveiled the heavy artillery. They've been doing it with a combination of singles, some good base running, and a little help from the Royals defense thrown in the first couple of games. But they have roared from behind with the extra base hits tonight.
Usually this is not a good home run park. The wind is blowing out to left field and picking up a little bit. We've showed you the dimensions. It is built down a little bit in a hole, and for some reason, like in Oakland also, the ball doesn't carry that well usually. They've hit him enough down the lines.
White comes in and throws Upshaw out. So Willie Upshaw grounds out on the 3-1 pitch, and it'll bring up Al Oliver. Of the 3 home runs hit tonight, 1 was a fly ball, just a long fly ball off Barfield's bat. But the Bret homer and this last one by Mullenix were high line drives that would have cut through any wind and been out of almost any ballpark.
I think like the St. Louis ballpark, if you get the ball from left center to right center, a lot of territory. If you get the ball from the 385 side, either left or right down the lines, they'll carry, and that's what these hitters have done so far.
Oliver is called back, and Bobby Cox plays the percentages, and Cliff Johnson becomes the designated hitter. He has a pair of doubles in the series. That may find the hole. Biancalana dives to come up with it, but can't get him. Fine play nonetheless by Buddy Biancalana.
He's been billed as the shortstop of the future for this ball club for a few years. They had UL Washington, traded him off. Concepcion won the job from Washington last season. He struggled this year. Biancalana came in, has played marvelous defense on occasion, and it's hard to do when you don't play regularly. You can't get into the flow of the game. He almost makes a nice play.
Here's Bell, who's singled and struck out.
Well, really, when you look at the Toronto bullpen, Laval, we don't know how bad he is. He may not be available. Jimmy Key might give Bobby Cox some innings today if needed. And of course, Hankey, although he's finished 2 ball games, didn't throw the ball that well.
That one gets through. Johnson trots down to second as Lonnie Smith fires it back in. And now the Blue Jays have batted around. Witt is the guy who started the inning with a single. They have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hits in the inning.
Bud Black just trying to spot the ball in the strike zone. He usually has a pretty crisp fastball. He did all last year, struggled with it this year. Threw the ball very hard at that running fastball that he became famous for in game 2. Not so far tonight.
Ball one high to Witt. Suppose the Blue Jays win tonight, and that's a big if. This ball game's only half over as Witt fouls it out of play, but suppose they do. Now you're Bobby Cox.
I don't think he'll pitch Steve if that's what you're going to ask.
That's just what I was going to ask.
I think he'll go with Clancy and give Dave the extra day's rest. He could afford it a little more then.
If the Blue Jays wrap this series up early, again a big if, they will be a well-rested club when the World Series starts, because it's not due to begin this year until Saturday. Of course, if things don't go well for the Cardinals in St. Louis, the same will be true of the Dodgers. Both could sit around for a week. 3-1 to Ernie Witt.
He is really struggling.
He's not used to coming out of the bullpen. It's his first relief appearance in 2 years. Make it 3 years since October of 1982. Steve Farr in the bullpen. He walks Witt, and the bases are loaded. Now here comes the 11th man to hit in the inning, Jesse Barfield. And here comes Howser.
I would think with Barfield up to hit the 2-run home run. First 2 runs on the board this inning for the Blue Jays. Farr's got that pretty good breaking ball, but on some cool nights to come out of the bullpen with the bases loaded, it's hard to control that curveball. And he'd be coming in a bases loaded situation, and he will.
You know, that last statistic, 0-11, is beginning to weigh heavily on Dick Howser. But an even greater concern, the prospect of going down 3-0 in this best-of-7 series. Exit Black, enter Farr with the bases loaded. Dick Howser knows, as you pointed out, Tony, that his team is not an awesome run producer. Even with George Brett and Willie Wilson in that lineup, they have overcome a 3-run deficit only 4 times all year. And the only time they came back to win, when the other team led by as many as 4 runs, was last Saturday night when they did it to Oakland to clinch the division. Only Texas scored fewer runs in the entire American League than Kansas City.
They score about 1 run per game less than the Toronto Blue Jays during the regular season. Far with that breaking ball, and Barfield's a fastball hitter if he goes with it. With a man on third, second, and first.
Outside, ball 1 to Barfield.
Farr pitched 2 innings. One of the first 2 ball games, walked 1. Regular season, he struck out about 1 per inning pitch, but also walked 20 in 36 innings.
Curveball drops in there for a strike.
Jesse Barfield has been taught by Cito Gaston to sit on certain pitches. He may be sitting on a breaking ball in the first 2.
Fastball swung on and missed. Fastball hit to White. That'll get them out of the inning. But the Blue Jays send up 11 hitters. They get 7 hits, and 2 of them are homers by Barfield and Mullenix, and they turn the game around.
The fellow with a big smile is part of the Toronto Blue Jays entourage. Gray suit. Executive Vice President, General Manager Pat Gillick, a left-handed pitcher for a while, pitched for Earl Weaver. Paul Beeston, the Vice President to his right. Vice President of Finance, the man in the trench coat, James Bond look-alike. In the lower left is Mr. Peter Widrington, a big executive from the brewery and of the Blue Jays. Don't see Mr. N.E. Peter Hardy there. They have a right to smile right now, don't they?
That was in the Baltimore organization, but in the minor leagues that Gillick pitched for Weaver, never pitched in the majors. But as you say, he's been the architect, and they have done it by an almost flawless blueprint. In this, their 9th year of existence, they're in the playoffs, and the Kansas City Royals almost wrote that book that Pat Gillick followed and Bobby Cox helped him execute, because in their 8th year of existence, the Royals were in the playoffs, and in their 3rd year, 1971, Kansas City, then managed by Bob Lemon, was over 500. So this was a team that really showed the way, the model way to build an expansion franchise into a contender.
And Doyle Alexander has had his moments of struggling in this ball game too. George Brett's home run in the 1st. He was hit fairly hard in the 4th. He has always had the great ability to keep his team in the ball game, make the pitches when he has to.
Ball 1 to Balboni, who is 0 for 9 in this series and 1 for 21 in his career in the league championship series. Update that to 1 for 21. And he's made errors in each of the first 2 games, so the postseason has been no festive occasion in the career of Steve Balboni, at least not yet. 1 and 2.
Well, he's a typical slugger. He's going to strike out a lot. He's going to take you downtown often enough to be a good run producer.
Over the top, and it's high 2 and 2. If this were still a best-of-5 format, as it was up until this year, the Blue Jays obviously would be going for the sweep. So as we said at the beginning of the telecast, the point of reference now becomes the World Series when you talk about comebacks. Well hit by Balboni, but George Bell had him played to pull and makes a little skipping catch on the warning track. May have misjudged it at the last, but still made the catch.
Played to pull and played him deep on the warning track. Respecting the power of Balboni, Alexander got a changeup up. Hit very hard by Balboni.
So anyway, Tony, as we pointed out at the beginning of the game, 7 times since 1955, a team has overcome a 2-0 deficit in World Series play and gone on to become the world champions. But no team down 3-0 has ever come back to win.
And tougher to do against a pitching staff like Toronto's. They led the American League in team ERA. Kansas City was 2nd, but pitching in a much bigger ballpark.
A drive off Sundberg's bat down the line and left. Bell over, and it's out of here. A couple of rows in. And signs of renewed life for the Royals.
Just stayed up and in. Al Widmar talking to Bobby Cox, and I would guess they're going to get somebody going. He doesn't want to lose this lead.
Buddy Biancalana is called back. Dane Orge will hit for him. Al Widmar with the glasses asked him if he thinks this series is wrapped up. He was the pitching coach for the 1964 Phillies. He knows the things that can happen.
So the bullpen's going, and the man that Bobby Cox has said off and on is probably our most valuable player. Didn't get much credit along the way. He's throwing now.
Strike 1 to Dane Orge. Dane guesses that his folks back in California are rooting for the Blue Jays. Of course, they want to see Dane do well for the Royals, but he suspects that since Garth Orge plays more for Toronto than he does for Kansas City, that if the parents are rooting for anybody, it's probably the Blue Jays, because Garth would see more action in the World Series. And Dane has been there before in 1982 with the Cardinals when he had 9 hits and hit over 500 as their designated hitter against the Brewers.
Now, Mr. Orge is here in the ballpark tonight and was up in Toronto, came over from Northern California, that redwood country, with son Lee, the middle brother, who played in the Mets organization.
Hit softly down the left field line. Bell is over, and in foul ground, he's got it. Here's Sundberg's homer once more.
Doyle Alexander dropped down, but didn't get it away. You can see Ernie with the catcher reaching way inside, probably inside off the plate, but when you drop down the right-hander to a right-hand hitter to the side, you give a little bit, you might open up, the left foot flies, and if you keep it inside, you see what Sundberg will do to it.
You could tell that Sundberg was by no means certain it was gone. He was running hard, hoping for the extra base hit, and it barely cleared the barrier. Lonnie Smith still looking for his first hit in the series, now 0 for 11. And Smith goes down swinging, now 0 for 12 in the series, and Alexander closes the inning out. It's an official game, and it's a 5-3 Toronto lead. A drive off Sundberg's bat down the line and left. Bell over, and it's out of here. A couple of rows in. We go to the top half of the sixth at Royals Stadium in Kansas City. Of course, just across the way, Arrowhead Stadium, home of the Kansas City Chiefs of the NFL. They built the dual stadiums here right alongside one another. This one made expressly for baseball, a capacity of just over 40,000. All the sight lines are good. White can't quite get to the sharply hit grounder off Fernandez's bat, and it's a leadoff single. The 12th hit of the game for the Blue Jays.
Ball hit the wet surface and scooted on by him. Didn't come up like many balls do off the artificial surface. This may be as good a complex as there is in the game, the Harry S. Truman Sports Complex. Every seat in this ballpark facing towards second base. The ball stays down on Frank, off his thumb. And we've got speed at first base. And with Damaso Garcia, contact hitter, will Bobby Cox try and move an infielder? He might. Garcia, if he's got a bad knee, he can pound the ball on the ground. He might stay out of a double play.
Hit to short. Concepcion is there, in for Biancalana, and he gets the force on the flip to Frank White.
He couldn't get the ball of his glove again, and it is so difficult. Remember, he double clutched on that ball that may have led to a Royals defeat. He charged it well, got caught, and upset the timing of Frank White, who thought he was going to turn a double play. He didn't have a good grip, which upset Frank White's timing coming across the bag. Fernandez, with a good jump, puts pressure on. When you mess around with your middle infielders, it's not always his fault. He's coming in cold, as he did the other day. And the throws are different from one middle infielder to the other, and there's not a timing or a pattern. May have hurt them and prevented the double play.
Mosby now, he walked, was robbed of a hit on that great play by Bret, where George threw to the plate to get this man, Garcia, trying to score from third. And then Mosby singled for the go-ahead run in the fifth. That was the shot off Saberhagen's leg.
If Garcia's knee is well after the hard slide into third, I'm sure he's got the green light. We may find out. He went through August with a little bit of a knee and a back problem, and he stole just two bases in 3 attempts.
There goes the runner, hit back to far. He plays to second and got him there, and they complete the double play. So despite the fact that Garcia was off with the pitch, they turn it 1-6-3. And game 4 of this series, 8 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow night from here in Kansas City. Willie Wilson trying to get aboard, and that would make Bret the tying run at the plate. Bottom of the 6th, 5-3 Toronto.
Dave Stieb threw before the ball game lightly and was to inform manager Bobby Cox and Al Whitmire, the pitching coach, whether he could come back with 3 days rest. Lebrun is, he only threw 48 pitches. Stieb not quite sure yet. When Alexander was struggling, Bob, early in the season, giving up a lot of home runs, getting behind, he went to a lot of knuckleballs. He used to throw 25 to 30 a game. Whitmire said, Trust your fastball.
Another base hit for Willie Wilson.
That should get the Toronto bullpen up again. It was up last inning also. He just can't seem to get anything downstairs, off speed or not. Doyle kind of flinched. It was hit fairly hard by Wilson, but he kind of got tied up like he didn't pick the ball up off the bat.
Wilson is now 2 for 3 on the night, a pair of singles with a ground out in between, and his 6 hits are the most by anyone on either team. Bret has 5 hits, 3 of them for extra bases. A homer and a double tonight, and the double missed being a home run by about a foot.
Alexander's clinching ball game, a strong performance against the Yankees last Saturday. Only one left-handed hitter. There were a bunch in the lineup against him. Pulled the ball in the air to right field. He just kept running that fastball away.
Bret walked 103 times this year, but not because he was looking for walks. He is not necessarily the world's most patient hitter. As he puts it, if I see a pitch, I just go and hack. But they pitched around him to such an extent this year, 31 of the walks being intentional, and that tied Ted Williams' American League record. He often had no choice but to leave the bat on his shoulder. Alexander has to come to him in this situation. Wilson at first, nobody out. Well hit to left center. Back goes Mosby, along with Bell. Forget it! Home run, Bret! Second now, he'll be coming out for the curtain call, and there he is. In 1978, Bret hit 3 homers in a league championship series game at Yankee Stadium on Catfish Hunter. About a foot separates him from 3 home runs in this game. The game is tied at 5. And a fair ball off McRae's bat. Possible extra bases. Barfield with a great arm. But McRae is in with a double.
The second baseman, Frank White.
Artie Witt's going to stall for a little bit of time. George Bret has hit a changeup off Alexander for a home run to right field in the first. A little slider for a double off the wall in right center field. And he just took a high fastball to left center, 2-run home run tied up. And watch this reaction from George Bret.
The booing you hear is for Bobby Cox, and you'll see him as we come back live. He's coming out to the mound. 2 home runs and a double for George Bret. And I don't think there's much doubt, Reggie Jackson included, especially if you consider postseason play altogether and don't confine it to World Series competition, George Bret certainly has no superior and may have no equal as a showcase player in all of baseball.
There's no quit in this team, and George Bret, the best hitter in the American League, has hit .362 with men on base throughout the year 1976. You couldn't have a better man up.
High drive, hit to right field.
Home run.
It's gone. There it is. The ball game is tied.
Certain situations, like he said, he doesn't like to look for pitches because it takes away from his greatest asset of just hitting the ball hard in particular spots. But there he is. I said it earlier, he made an error. What did I say? I'm no gospel, but I think I know athletes. It'll make him a better hitter when he comes back to the plate. Take a look at the little short porch over there. George Brett. You might not be a scientific hitter, George, but you can do it.
That pitch is hit high in the air and deep to right. It is gone in the upper deck for Brett.
It's always nice to brief you folks in advance. The very thing we were talking about.
Probably would have been a fly ball to center field.
Brett hits it well again. Rivers turns his back, goes back. It is gone. Brett is 2 for 2.
Nobody ever accused George Brett of having that kind of consistency of power.
Here that way. We'll have a look at it. George Brett hits it to right field. Is it 3 in a row? Yes! Incredible!
What a performance!
Yeah, it's a pretty good sign. President Brett declares war on the Yankees.
He hit that one well. And that ball is gone. Well, you said he wasn't swinging the bat well, but he got the ball out of the plate and drilled it into the over the wall in deep left center field. And the Royals now lead 5-2.
Outfield deep at every position now with George Brett at the plate. Set by Gossage, a high drive hit deep to right field. It is gone. 3-run home run by George Brett into the third tier of Yankee Stadium, and Brett has taken the Royals and put them in front. Put them in front here in the 7th inning. The Royals now lead it 4-2, and a stunned crowd here at Yankee Stadium in New York as Brett being patted on the back by Gordy McKenzie and the welcoming party at home plate as the Royals lead by a pair of runs.
In effect, George Brett has said to his teammates, come on, boys, hop on my back. I'll carry you. And Willie Wilson happily accepts the ride. He has developed tremendous power the opposite way, which he just demonstrated. He wasn't going at all to help that ball. Doyle Alexander, Mr. Tommy Craig, the assistant trainer, just didn't have his good stuff tonight. He had a lead, which he usually holds on to. Now it's Dennis' last turn. So Saberhagen is history. Alexander still could be the pitcher of record on the losing side if McRae scores. Down the right field line and out of play. Strike one to Frank White. But if Lamb gets them out of this inning without further damage, then the game will be in his hands, and for the time being, Steve Farr. About a half an hour ago, I put my foot in my mouth again. Not unusual, saying this team doesn't come back too often. Well, the statistics back you up. They had overcome a 3-run deficit only 4 times all year. They challenged George Brett. A highly dubious strategy at any time. Right center field with this one. Far field in pursuit. Jesse's got it. McRae will head to third and make it. And he's there with only 1 out. Nice piece of hitting like Hal McRae back in the score to move Brett to third. That's the man they say is the soul of this ball club. The man who says, Hal McRae, I learned to play with Pete Rose at Cincinnati, and he has taught a lot of people on this Kansas City Royals ball club how to play, and Frank White just shows you how. Hits the ball the opposite way. Ferraro says stand up. Infield be forced to come in. They've played solid baseball today. comes the mistake. Lonnie Smith air in left field. Ernie Wett saves a run. Dennis Lamp, basically a sinker ball pitcher, keeps the ball down and a tough, quick slider. First and a game tie here in the sixth, and here's the narrow miss in the fourth. Up over the padding and no more than a couple of feet from going out. And that ball hit on the fifth. The 1-2. Back to Lamp. He looks McRae back to third, and there's the second out. That's how Dennis Lamp makes his living. Ground ball out. Ball down low in the strike zone too, but with Lamp sinker, when it's running right, he gets a lot of low ball hitters out with a low pitch. The low pitch between the knees and the ankle zone. McRae trying to decoy draw a throw. Steve Balboni thinking this would be an excellent time to bid goodbye to those postseason blues of his. He's flied out twice in this game. For strike two. Lamp doesn't throw anything straight. Fastball either runs in or sinks a lot. He'll throw an occasional changeup, but he was used as the stopper last year when they couldn't get through Skossage. He was pretty much a one-pitch pitcher. Not anymore. He may go sliding now. Balboni wouldn't bite. It's 1-2. Goes down swinging, but you'll still hear an ovation from these Kansas City fans. They scored twice. They leave a man at third. Folks, you're looking at one of the all-time greats. We'll be right back after these messages from your local station. The seventh.
Vin's great line last year at the World Series. Vin Scully talking about there's a youngster whose head is trying to go into his dream. And I can't talk like Vince Scully, so I'd probably goof that up, right? Was it close?
Close enough.
Okay.
Moving right along. Mullenix, who had a homer in the 5-run Toronto fifth. 0-1 the count to him. It's Steve Farr and Dennis Lamp now.
Toronto have been through games like this, but more especially a pennant race where they had about an 8.5 game lead, saw it go down to 1.5. So they've been used to a lot of adversity and pressure during the last week of the season. It has not bothered them to this point. And they know they've got bats on the bench. Bobby Cox knows he's got more pitchers in the bullpen. But can they hold down George Brett?
He tipped it, and Sundberg held it. So Mullenix goes down on strikes.
The first baseman, Willie Upshaw.
A fastball that ran away a little bit, and Sundberg holds on. Yogi had the great knack for that. It has become a somber bench, hasn't it? But I'm sure a lot of confidence left. You don't win 99 ball games in the regular season and you see a game like this. They're still in a very good position. Tie ball game 2-0 with the lead. And if it should come to it, game 6 and 7 would be played at Exhibition Stadium, their home park.
And you talk about form in baseball, and in both the National League Series and to a certain extent in this series, form have gone out the window thus far. 1-2 to Willie Upshaw. Coming in tonight, if Dick Howser were to conjure up some kind of scenario by which he would get back into the series, it would certainly be with Saberhagen pitching a good game, not winning a slugfest where neither Alexander nor Saberhagen will be involved in the decision.
I don't think Dick Howser's thoughts as of yet are Saberhagen in his condition. He got cracked pretty good, and will he be available if this thing goes into 6 and 7?
Upshaw pops it up. Balboni over near the tarp. He's got it. And a glum expression for Upshaw, who's now 1 for 4. He had a double back in the 4th. What do you think George Brett's lifetime league championship series slugging percentage is?
It's got to be high. How high? I don't have the figures in front of me. 650, 700? Like wild guess only.
769. And in this series, he's slugging almost 1,300.
What Dick Howser needs right now is just what Farr is doing. Keep, if there is a thing like momentum in baseball, one pitch we've seen in this game can change the momentum in a hurry from one side to the other with one swing of the bat. That's done that. He wants a good inning, 3 up, 3 down, so they can generate some more offense. And in this tie ball game, George Brett is guarding the line, as is Balboni. We're into the 7th, it's tie, so they're not going to give that double on either corner. Bones is doing the same thing at first base.
And as we move into the late innings, we also have our fingers crossed that the rain will hold off and let this very exciting ball game run its natural course. Breaking ball, they check down at first, and the ruling from Ted Hendry is that Johnson went around 1 and 2.
When Farr's got control of that breaking pitch, he's something. And quite a find, while middle relief has been a struggle. Look at where Sundberg's set up. He got it low and away. Cliff Johnson couldn't hold up.
That's all for Cliff Johnson, and Steve Farr works a 1-2-3, top of the 7th. Sundberg, Concepcion, and Smith due in the bottom half, tied at 5. With Wilbert Harrison's Kansas City anthem, I'm going to Kansas City in the background. There's Ewing Kaufman, one of the owners of the ball club, waving, along with his wife Muriel Kaufman, who's a member of the board of directors of the team, and she threw out the first ball tonight.
Mrs. Kaufman, Muriel, of course, a Toronto lady who really helped a lot emotionally, 5-5 ball game here, 7th, to get a franchise for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Kansas City, here I come. They got some crazy looking women there. And of course, since we're both married, the next line doesn't apply.
It's turned out to be a nice night. The wind has quit, so perhaps rain will not blow back over this ballpark. They thought it might rain off and on the entire ball game. It quit very early. So George Brett's ball that he hit the left center field had no help. He's just become a guy who's got almost awesome power the other way.
Sundberg, little something up his sleeve.
They got Sundberg primarily for his defensive. I mean, he's had some good offensive years with Texas and did with Milwaukee last year, but they struggled so. They knew they had a young pitching staff. They wanted a good handler of a young staff, a good teacher, and a good thrower. Hadn't thrown that well this year, though.
Look where Mullenix is. Right on the line. And a big hole between short and third for Sundberg. Lamp took something off, a ball and 2 strikes. Mosby is playing rather shallow in center field. That's pretty much his style. Bell has Sundberg play deeply in left.
And as soon as Lamp went ahead, 1 ball, 2 strikes, the entire outfield shifted more toward right field, expecting Sundberg to get hit more defensively.
2-2.
Scouting reports are so important. Some of the guys who did that for the Blue Jays: Dave Yoakum, Dwayne Larson, Moose Johnson. Jerry Terrell scouted the Toronto Blue Jays.
Got him.
Still got some Dodger and Cardinal scouts following these two teams.
Second strikeout for Lamb.
The Blue Jays bullpen is up, so I'm certain Bobby Cox, after he got a lot of good work in game 2, that is Bill Caudle on the left, Jim Clancy on the right, so perhaps Steve will start tomorrow. With Clancy up, Bobby Cox has had him going a couple of times in this ball game, so apparently Steve will come back with 2 days rest.
44-year-old Bobby Cox in his 4th year as the Blue Jays manager. Concepcion bounces to his opposite number, shortstop Fernandez, who throws him out.
You know, when you think of the 4 managers in postseason play, you mentioned a man in one of our earlier telecasts, former Yankee, Tiger, and Red Sox manager. Bobby Cox played for Houck, says the greatest influence on his managerial career is Houck. Dick Howser was asked to stay in baseball as a coach, became a manager. Tommy Lasorda plays with the Dodgers, or manages the Dodgers. There's Howser. He says Houck was his biggest influence. He played for the Denver, and Whitey Herzog played for Ralph Houck also. That's quite a tie, isn't it? He's been a great mentor and teacher for these guys.
Smith with 2 out and nobody on. Hits the curveball up the middle, and that's his first base hit of the series. And now Lonnie Smith, who stole 40 during the season, is aboard in a possible running situation.
Jose Martinez helping him out, excuse me.
In stereo, Jose Martinez.
Little Sir Echo. The team started clicking when Lonnie Smith came over, and they really got in full gear end of July when McRae took off.
Lonnie was a good percentage base stealer this year, caught only 7 times. He does have a tendency to get picked off. That's happened to him 5 times this year. Wilson drives one to right, but Barfield is right there for the catch. Couldn't hit it much harder. No runs, a hit, and Smith is stranded. Still tied at 5 now after 7.
The Canadian flag and that maple leaf on it, and that's one of the reasons why the most attractive kids souvenir at many ballparks, not just up in Toronto, that bird, the Blue Jay with that little red maple leaf. Kids love it. I think it's about the 2nd greatest attraction among souvenirs in almost every ballpark, next to the home park hat and logo. The Blue Jays.
Well, I guess those rumors taking Bobby Cox to Atlanta have been squelched as he moves down the runway a bit. Chuck Tanner, the new manager of the Braves, gets a long-term contract, so he wasn't out of work very long, was he? George Bell drives one through the hole for a leadoff single here in the 8th.
Far hangs a breaking ball.
The catcher, Ernie Whitt.
Bell can steal you a base, too. Bobby Cox will have to decide if he gives Bell the green light or keeps the hole open. With Balboni holding the runner, Whitt pretty much a pull hitter, try and shoot it through.
Got the corner for a called strike.
Whitt probably the only authentic left-handed pull hitter that the Blue Jays have. Jimmy Williams flashing signs. Will he start him to try instead of a double play, or will he let Ernie pick his pitch? Bell with not a very big lead.
The 5 home runs, by the way, in this game ties a league championship series record. The Yankees and Royals did it in 1978, combining for 5. That's a ball 1-1. And in the National League, the Mets and Braves in 1969, the Pirates and Giants in 71, the Dodgers and Phillies in 78, and the Cubs and Padres in 1984, although in that game at Wrigley Field, all 5 homers were hit by the Cubs. That was game 1 last year.
In what's supposed to be a pitcher's ballpark.
Not going again, and fouled back to the screen, 1-2.
Ernie Witt trying so hard to pull the ball, try and create a first and third. You could see him go out on a high pitch away and try and top-hand it and hook it. It may have gone out of his strike zone. Here's Barfield. He's got a 2-run home run to right field in the 5th.
That's what got him started in that 5-run inning.
Bell still not getting a big lead.
It's still not going. Just off the outside corner, 2-2.
Fire thought he had it. It's a pitcher's pitch, the one that Sundberg tried to just caress into the outside corner.
There he goes, swing and a miss. The throw, got it.
Wow, he was under that tag. He was under that tag. That's going to bring trouble once again for an umpire. Vic Voltaggio with Jimmy Williams. They're going to have to keep Bell, who is very, very hot-tempered. Jimmy Williams taking care of George Bell, the Dominican. Bobby Cox will argue with Voltaggio. Sundberg, during the regular season, threw out just 17 of 70. He led the major leagues with 50% last year. They got him for his throwing. He hasn't provided that this year. And it sure appeared live that Bell was under the tag.
Of course, Sundberg had a sore shoulder early in the year and later torn rib cartilage, and that undoubtedly inhibited his throwing motion.
Well, Hank Bauer, who's done some scouting for the Yankees, writing a column for a local paper here, said that Sundberg, and it probably is attributable to the sore shoulder, has really been winding up, has a very long throw, probably to compensate for the shoulder, and he's kind of long-arming the ball or slinging it.
Well, Cox has had his say-so, and here's our look at it.
Here comes Sundberg's throw. It's way high. Bell is under it by a lot.
Unless he came off the bag.
He slid over the top and his hand caught it. We'll say it again. He just beats it. It's his foot's on it. Well, if that's what Voltaggio called, perhaps he's right, but they don't usually call it that way.
His left leg definitely bounced up off the bag, but at the same time, his left arm may have been coming in, so that may have had a piece of the bag at the moment the tag was made.
Well,
there's no doubt he beat the ball. No doubt he beat the ball.
Think about it, George Bell, as good a player he is all around. One thing he doesn't do well is slide. He never has. They've tried to teach him how to slide.
Barfield pops it up. The top of the 8th is history as White squeezes it. And as we head for the bottom half, the Blue Jays have to contemplate the prospect of facing George Brett first. All he's done tonight is double and homer twice.
Why does George Brett use Lifebuoy? Look at him. Oh.
You get dirty out here, smelly too. So after I give my body to baseball, I give it to Lifebuoy. Nothing powers away dirt and sweat better. And Lifebuoy kills odor. Gives me real deodorant protection.
George Brett, before Lifebuoy, after Lifebuoy. I'll take after Lifebuoy.
Now, check stores for the George Brett $30,000 instant winner sweepstakes.
We're going to give you another look at George Bell as Ernie Witt swings through a ball. Sundberg's throw rides high. He hits the bag. Watch Concepcion. He goes back to re-tag, and the hand is on the bag. So Voltaggio has had a couple of arguments. One from Willie Wilson and Dick Howser early in the ball game. Hendry has had one from Mosby. He's at first base, and Voltaggio now again from George Bell. It's puts on the bag, hands on the bag, retags, still on the bag.
Well, the question about tomorrow night's starter has been answered. There's Bell, not entirely pleased, still thinking about it. Jim Clancy has come out of the bullpen now, so that means Dave Stieb definitely will start game 4. I wonder if Bobby Cox is aware of the fact that George Brett, who now receives a standing ovation, has absolutely demolished Jim Clancy in his career.
I'm sure Bobby Cox does, but especially Jim Clancy. Clancy's been on the DL twice this year, appendectomy coming out of the spring, a little arm problem. He's thrown the ball well in his start since coming back after all of August off. A hard throw, fastball throw, and George Brett can hit fastballs.
Brett has hit 5 homers off Clancy in his career. About 1 every 10 at-bats against him. So you've got a red-hot hitter with a guy he likes to face. A ball and a strike.
Clancy, a hard thrower who can also sink the fastball. A good slider. Has struggled most of his major league career trying to come up with a straight change.
Ground ball. Well, he's in a slump. It's only a single. And he's 4 for 4. You know, earlier when I said that George Brett certainly has no superior and maybe no equal as a postseason player, a showcase player in all of baseball, I meant no disrespect to my friend Reggie Jackson, whose Cooperstown credentials are certainly intact. But in a moment, after we watch this replay, I'm going to give you some postseason figures for George Brett.
Hal McRae right now, Bob, if he's still having trouble with the rib cage, he may be up there bunting. Remember, Brett has already stolen a base during this postseason play, and there's 9 steals and 1 cut. I think McRae's going to be bunting, though.
He squares. He bunts. Clancy's play is to first. Go ahead run in scoring position. That run in the person of George Brett, whose league championship series batting average lifetime is now .370, counting that last hit that made him 4 for 4. He has 8 LCS homers. That ties Garvey's major league record. His slugging percentage is approaching .800. That's a record for both major leagues. That's just in the league championship series. In his 1 World Series, he hit .375 with a homer against the Phillies in 1980. And in 9 All-Star games, he's a .304 career hitter. Frank White bounces one to short. Brett's coming over to third, and he'll make it. Fernandez throws White out.
What a good instinctive reaction by George Brett with that weight loss. And he came into spring training, the weight program, jogging 5 miles and sprinting. They're going to intentionally pass Sheridan to get to Balboni, who's been struggling. So Balboni, who's been somewhat of a factor thus far, on a negative side, is going to get a chance to redeem himself. He's a free swinger. Clancy, a power pitcher. So we put runners at the corners. And while this walk is being issued, there's Balboni in the on-deck circle. They've got the Royals bullpen going. This would have been a situation for Bill Caldwell, but Bobby Cox, there is Quisenberry on the left and Gubas on the right as Balboni steps in. Bobby Cox really hasn't put Caldwell for the biggest part of the second half of the season in tough situations like this, and he doesn't appear to be doing it tonight. Val's elbow gone, and Key scheduled to start a game. He's a little thin down there also.
In the category of understatement, Balboni is due. And Clancy has unhappy memories of him. Ball 1. Balboni Boney is 0 for 3 tonight and just 1 hit and better than 20 postseason at-bats over the last 2 years.
And Jim Clancy, throughout his career, has had streaks of wildness. He's not pitched in relief very often.
Two and 0. Sundberg would be next. Hit softly, and it could be big trouble. It will drop. Kansas City has the lead.
Second base was left vacant. Mosby ran it in. To drop between Mosby and Fernandez, and also for Damaso Garcia coming out. He forgot to step on home plate, had a retouch. It wasn't pretty, but Balboni squibs one to center on a 2-0 pitch.
Sheridan moved over to third. Here's Sundberg. Ball 1 to him. I saw Lynn Jones with a glove in the Kansas City dugout. Maybe they'll make a defensive move involving Lonnie Smith now that they have the lead when they get to the ninth. Balboni goes off first, and Sundberg drives one into right center field. Barfield goes back and hauls it in. They settle for 1. Brett opened the inning with a single. Balboni got him home with that little flare. We go to the ninth. Game 3 of the 1985 American League Championship Series is brought to you by light beer from Miller, everything you've always wanted in a beer and less. By IBM and its family of personal printers for the finishing touch. By McDonald's, it's a good time for the great taste of McDonald's. And by Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? Well, Tony, you were on to something. No Quisenberry. Steve Farr goes out to the mound to start the ninth inning. Maybe Quisenberry himself said it best earlier this season. He said, I used to be able to walk on water, but nowadays, sometimes I get wet.
We've also got to look at what Steve Farr has done. Since he came on in the 5th to leave the bases loaded, Blue Jays stranded. Barfield grounded out. He has retired 10 in a row. Yeah, base hit by Fernandez, infield hit past White. Got a double play and a ground out. 3 up, 3 down. He got a single, but then a strikeout, throw out. So he's got 10 consecutive retired, and that's why Dick Howser says the man deserves to stay in, and he does.
Fernandez, who will start it here in the ninth, was the leadoff man in the bottom of the 10th with Kansas City leading by a run in game 2. He chopped a single over the mound, and the Blue Jays went on to score twice. First pitch swing, he hits it to Concepcion, who throws him out.
I guess it's going to be Dave Steed tomorrow against Charlie Lebrand, with Clancy having coming in the ball game.
There's the lineup. Cox and Welch, game 3, must-win situation for the Cards, followed by Sports World with a WBC Featherweight Championship bout. And then at 8 Eastern time, we're back here for game 4. Steve charting the pitches and getting ready for tomorrow.
So we have a 6-5 10-inning game in game number 2. Got a 6-5 game going in the 9th in game number 3. Typical of the ball games these two teams tied up in all year long.
Concepcion will have a long throw, He's got Garcia on a good stretch by Balboni.
Another argument, Billy Smith saying that Balboni's foot was off the bag, but not too vigorous of an argument. They're going to be up now for fire in this ballpark. Bret brought him back. Balboni with that little blooper to center field for the game winner. Now Farr's trying to shut him down in the ninth. Started as the 10th man on the AAA ball club this year.
Ball one to Mosby. Most of the crowd out of their seats and on their feet.
Isn't that a great story? He was the 10th pitcher on their AAA ball club. He was almost on the scrap heap trying to get his career rejuvenated.
1-1. If this holds up, obviously he's the winner. Clancy will be the loser. Just when the Royals might have been hearing the Executioner's song, down 5-2 and staring at a 3-0 deficit, the kind of deficit that's never been overcome in postseason play.
You probably saw Sundberg give the sign and then indicate his left thigh with a finger. That was the location. Keep it away from Mosby if he's going to hit it. Hold him to a single. Staying away.
Balls and 2 strikes. The executive producer of NBC Sports is Michael Weissman. Coordinating producer of baseball, Harry Coyle. Tonight's producer, Kenneth Edmondson. Directed by Andy Rosenberg. Pre-game produced by Les Dennis. Directed by John Libretto. Technical director, Neil Flagg.
Where do you focus the cameras if this is over? On Bret, on Farr, or Dick Howser looking for his postseason victory?
It's popped up, and appropriately it will be Bret. Kansas City wins it. After an 0-for-11 drought, Howser has his win.
The Royals are back in it.
The all-time foregone conclusion. Tonight's NBC Light Beer from Miller player of the game is George Brett, and Light Beer from Miller is happy to present a check for $1,000 in the name of George Brett, who lit up an October night in Kansas City. That $1,000 will go to help fight multiple sclerosis. A single, a double, a pair of homers. This was the first one in the first inning. It gave them a 1-0 lead. Then he did it with his glove. The score still 1-0. The Mosby bouncer, a great backhand stab, and from foul ground, he comes to the plate to get Garcia and preserve what was then a 1-0 lead. Now stay tuned for local news, followed by The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson and Friday Night Video. See you tomorrow night.